I'm sorry, which hostages?
He's gotten a number of people home. He was able.
There's still 100 people over there.
Well, there were more than
including some Americans. Look, I think he's gonna leave office in disgrace. The Hunter Biden pardon was disgraceful. He's going to be remembered largely for inflation and for the disastrous Afghanistan pullout. And I think as we continue to, we're just getting the first draft of this now, but as we continue to learn about the massive cover-up that went on, not about his health, but about his mental acuity, to cover that up, the efforts that were undertaken by the White House staff, by his family, not in the last couple of months, but for all 4 years, I think it's going to be a really ugly chapter. It's a diminished presidency because of it. And I think we still don't know the full extent of what they did to try to hide what they've been doing over in the West Wing.
So I think leaving in disgrace is when you have an insurrection at the Capitol. Like, that's leaving in disgrace. Being impeached twice is leaving in disgrace. So that's a difference. I think Joe Biden's going to be remembered in the short term for what you were talking about, whether or not he had the capacity to lead, who knew what when. I mean, there are many people outside of the very small network of Anita Dunn and Valerie Biden Owens and Jill Biden and Hunter. There aren't many people who knew the concerns that were there or whether or not he was up or fit for the job. And so those questions will be asked. Over the long term, this is somebody a lot like Mitch McConnell. You don't necessarily have to agree with everything they stood for. You don't have to agree with every vote. But you always knew they put the American people first. You always knew that. We had different paths of getting there, but that's what they believed in. They believed in this country, they believed in these institutions, and they did their best to strengthen them from different perspectives and different perches. Tangibly, Inflation Reduction Act, CHIPS Act, putting Ketanji Brown Jackson on the Supreme Court. I mean, these are things, you have prescription prices that are capped, things that Donald Trump's going to take credit for emerging from COVID. Tangibly, from a political perspective, bipartisanship, that's what Joe Biden means.
Go ahead.
I think in the short term, he will be remembered in part by the sense of buyer's remorse that a lot of voters, I think, felt, that there was hope when he had come into office in the wake of January 6th and what have you, to say, I want to be a president who's going to be unifying, and I'm going to be a president who's going to set up the next generation of Democratic leadership. And I think a lot of voters feel like they did not come away from these 4 years with a world that feels more stable, an economy that feels better. And so in the short term, it's that buyer's remorse, that they didn't get the Biden presidency they were perhaps hoping for. And that's why we have Donald Trump coming back, which leads into this longer term legacy of he could have been someone that could have said, I am representing this past era of leadership. I'm going to do it my way, and then I'm going to hand over the reins. The fact that he gave that speech saying it's time to hand over the reins in January of 2024 and not pretty early on in his presidency, especially with what we know now about how long he's been experiencing these challenges, I think that's the long-term challenge of the legacy he'll face.
All right. Before we go, quick whip around, very quick. Predictions, 2025.
I'm feeling somewhat optimistic about the way things are going in a lot of global hotspots. So whether it is in the Middle East, where things seem particularly unstable and chaotic, or whether it's this long and drawn out conflict with Russia and Ukraine, I do think that even though Donald Trump and I are not always on the same page when it comes to foreign policy, I'm optimistic that his new approach can bring about something new.
Okay, so I'm going to go a little bit more fun. If you may have noticed the last couple of weeks, though, members of Congress, when they show up on television, they're in like their flannel shirts, they're in like a shirt and a vest. I think we're going to see members adopt the sort of John Fetterman modality.
I was going to say, is it the Fettermanization?
It's the Fetterman effect, yes, and try to be like, hey, I'm a real person, I'm in my flannel.
You didn't adopt that this morning.
No. What am I, a hobo? I'm going to come on television. I'm a broadcast professional.
You know why you're not? Because
Oh,
it's
that's
not
it.
it's not 1960. We
It's
don't
been
need
Republicans and Democrats, I should say.
Go ahead, Farmer.
I have two. One on the domestic front. I think Republicans are going to pass a few bills between the 3rd and the 20th for Donald Trump to sign on day one. And number two, I'm going to try to make a prediction for the hope of bringing this into reality. I hope the hostages, and believe the hostages will be released, the ones that are still there. We need them back. There are a lot of families that have been waiting for a very long time, so I'm going to predict that they're coming back, and as soon as possible.
No, I believe the hostages are coming home. I believe they'll come home on Joe Biden's watch. I know they've been working diligently to do that, and that's my prayer. The second thing is, I think that the most anticlimactic political event that we're seeing is this race for DNC chair that absolutely nobody cares about. I hope that somebody else emerges as a candidate.
How about you?
Well, let's go to commercial break.
Thank you. Appreciate it. You don't need me anymore.